The Ravens are one win away from earning the AFC's number one seed. Would you take them or the field in a weird, wacky AFC? That plus the latest on the Kansas City Chiefs. And is Antonio Pierce here to stay in Las Vegas?
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome into a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. He's Chris Carter. I'm James Rapine. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And Chris, this AFC playoff race is as crazy as I can remember. Both of the teams we cover are in the thick of it at 8-7. But at the top of the AFC sit the Baltimore Ravens following an impressive Monday night victory where they intercept Brock Purdy 4 times in a huge blowout win over the 49ers. So I think it begs the question, while people talk about Lamar Jackson MVP and what the Ravens have to do to get the 1 seed, which is simple, just beat the Dolphins this week. If you had to pick today, would you take the Ravens or the field in a weird, wacky AFC?
That's interesting because the field includes the Buffalo Bills. And I like the cut of their jib. I like the way that Josh Allen's playing. I think that they're the team in the wild card race right now that nobody wants to face. Nobody is going to want to draw them on the first weekend of the AFC playoffs. And as it stands right now, if the playoffs started today, the Chiefs would get them. I think they'd beat the Chiefs again in Kansas City. And then all of a sudden, as long as the 7th seed doesn't win, they'd have they'd get to face off with the Ravens in the second round. And man, that would be some fun TV to see Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen go down. I'm not discounting the Ravens. They've done a great job this year. Lamar Jackson is certainly playing like an MVP. He's playing without the receivers that, everyone says that Patrick Mahomes is missing. Zay Flowers has certainly played well this year, and he's been pretty good. But they're missing Mark Andrews. They still don't have a dominant receiving group, and he's still finding ways to win. And also that Ravens defense, they bring it. They bring it from all sides. They pressured Purdy. They were able to keep the 49ers limited for a long time. They create turnovers. You like what they're doing right now. So I would say I'll take the field just because I could see the Dolphins or the Bills end up beating them in the playoffs, even if the Ravens beat the Dolphins next week when they face off. But I look at this and I say, man, this year has been too weird and wacky, as you were saying, for the AFC to just say, oh yeah, the 1 seed's gonna win it all.
Totally get it, and that's how I feel. Really, each and every year, like you get the 1 seed, and it's like, yeah, but Mahomes can lose at Arrowhead, even though it doesn't happen much when they've had the 1 seed in recent years, and they did lose to the Bengals a few years ago. But I look at this AFC, and I think a team like Cleveland with a really good defense could give the Ravens problems. I think the Chiefs could to a degree, and we could talk more about them. But so there are teams that can give the Ravens problems, and I'm not saying they're unbeatable by any stretch. But I think when looking at the AFC and looking at a conference and really an entire league, but strictly AFC, that is flawed. All of these teams have flaws. I think the Ravens are the team with the fewest flaws, with an elite defensive coordinator, with a guy in Roquan Smith who just makes them go in the middle of that defense. And even though they don't have the best secondary in the world, assuming that their just all-star safety is okay, I think they have enough there on the back end to survive. Even though they don't have the best pass rush, I think adding Jadeveon Clowney, who looks weird wearing number 24, even though he was very productive.
Really does.
It's ridiculous looking. But, hey, he's productive. And I think as long as Lamar Jackson stays healthy, they are a problem for the rest of this conference, because the Chiefs, if they have to go to Baltimore, do you like their chances? I don't, not against that defense.
No.
The Browns, I love the Joe Flacco story. It's awesome. is he going to go to Baltimore, which heck of a storyline. What would that be? In the playoffs and win? I don't know about that. And so I agree with you. I think the one team that gives me pause, gives me hesitation is the Buffalo Bills. But based on what I've seen from the Ravens in recent weeks, I think they're not only the team to beat, I think I would take them right now. Health is always a factor. But if Lamar Jackson is healthy, if their main pieces are healthy, which they are currently, I think they're going to win the AFC.
I think they absolutely could, but another guy to watch is Kyle Hamilton, who injured his knee late against the 49ers, and he has come on very strong for them, and is a big part of that team, that defense, and that secondary. If he can't go, that's him. But the good thing is the Baltimore Sun did report it doesn't look too bad for him, even if he has to sit against the Dolphins next week. If he can just get back and be healthy for the playoffs, I do like the Ravens' chances. Again, I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying, man, I've seen some weirder and crazier things happen than a team playing as well as them, winning, losing a game against a decent AFC team. I'll add this to the conversation: the AFC South. What is that division? Because at one point the Jaguars looked unstoppable. Not unstoppable, but they looked like one of the top contenders. They looked like they were going to be right in the mix of everything. They were going to run away with the division, even as the Texans started to surge a little bit. But now the entire division is basically 8-7 minus the 5-10 Titans. And one of those teams has to win a division and host a playoff team. Another one of those teams might make the playoffs as a wild card. And I look at all three of those teams, and unless CJ Stroud returns, I'm not sure if any of those teams win a playoff game right now.
I agree with you. I'm pretty shocked at what has happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's completely unraveled. I thought that they would respond, and they haven't. And I mean, you get blown out like you did this past week. It's ugly right now, and so hopefully Trevor Lawrence is healthy. Speaking of health, the Texans are dealing with some injuries, and they're a pretty shallow roster. They've achieved a lot this season and exceeded expectations. But that is part of why I take the Ravens, is because you look at this Jags team, and I thought they would become one of these teams, especially if Trevor could have stayed healthy. He didn't. And that's why I keep going back to health, is all these quarterbacks that are dinged up. It really hurts things and impacts these teams' chances. So I think a fully healthy Jags team is still a problem. I think they're scary to a degree, but we were talking about this team being in contention for the 1 seed a few weeks ago. And since then they've lost and lost and lost and lost again, 4 straight. So now I wonder if they'll be able to overcome that and win the AFC South, because they're reeling a bit right now.
Yeah, it's a big question right now. And again, back to the Ravens, the AFC South winner, that takes, if the Jaguars either stink or don't win the division, that takes one of the teams that I think the Ravens would have had to worry about in a game. I know that the Ravens beat them earlier this year. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, 23-7. But that's a team that if they were healthy, I would at least make that like a even. I would have a decent chance of beating each other. I mean, these were teams that were competing for the 1 seed about a month ago, and now here they are. The Ravens still surging. The Jaguars fighting to try to just win a division that's stuck at 8-7. But like I said, I agree with your take that the Ravens are absolutely the favorite right now. I'm very intrigued to see how these teams play down the stretch. Ravens Dolphins looming large this weekend.
It is. It's huge. And this Jags team, I would be shocked if they didn't make the playoffs at this point. They still play the Panthers, and then they have the Titans. If you can't win those 2 games, you don't deserve to get in anyway. Mm-hmm. But as far as the Ravens are concerned, I think they're going to beat the Dolphins. I do. I think
they could. Yeah.
Out physical them. Jalen Waddle's beat up. I think that they know what's on the line, and then you can rest, get healthy, and ready to go. Plus, you'll have a bye week as well. Let's continue with a team that is used to having a bye week, that is used to having home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs, but they're not going to have it this year. The Kansas City Chiefs, are they still Super Bowl contenders? We will answer that question coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, whether it's an NFL game or tickets to any sporting event, music, comedy, theater. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. They have easy-to-find tickets, and you can buy tickets for any event in your area. And they also have a lowest-priced guarantee. So if you have any type of event cancellation for whatever reason, well, you're protected. And you're protected job loss protection as well. And it's all with a couple of taps. You go to the GameTime app, you can buy tickets in seconds. All-in prices also show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. Download the GameTime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, James Rapine, Locked On Steelers and Locked On Bengals. Let's switch to the team that everyone thought was going to be the 1 seed this year in the playoffs, and that was the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, who at one point looked like they were going to be just that. You know, they came into this season heading into their bye week. They had just beaten the Miami Dolphins in a strong win. They were 7-2, and they were hosting Philadelphia Eagles. Even when they lost close to the Eagles, I think everyone's like, oh, they're still going to be the top dog. And then they beat the Raiders. And then since then, they have lost 3 of their last 4 against the Packers, against the Bills, and now embarrassingly at home against the Raiders. Their one win has been against the Patriots. And now they finish against the Bengals and the Chargers here. What has happened to the Chiefs, James? Are they a team that's still legitimately a contender? Like, do you discount them from the playoffs as a team that could beat the Dolphins or the Ravens at the way they're currently playing? Or is this team is this team just having a slump right now and they can fight their way out of it?
This is the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era that they don't have answers. And whether it's Travis Kelce slamming his helmet the other day, Patrick Mahomes losing his mind, yelling at the offensive line, they have legitimate issues on offense. And I don't know how they solve them. I don't. This defense is as good as they've had since Patrick Mahomes has been in town, and their offense is by far the worst it's been. And Travis Kelce isn't the same. And Patrick Mahomes is searching for answers. And Rashee Rice was the beneficiary of about 52 dump-offs the other day. But that was it. That was the only thing that was consistent. It wasn't Travis Kelce. It wasn't deep shots to any of these other guys like Watson or, Kadarius Toney. Or they don't really have anyone. McCole Hardman, who they acquired earlier this year and brought him back. They don't really have a reliable option. And the most reliable guy in the league over the past, maybe decade has been Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
But he's not the same right now, whether it's the ankle, which they mentioned on the broadcast on Monday, or just him being 34 years old and taking a lot of hits and playing the tight end position, which is probably the case. They're searching for answers. And so they are not, and I'll be very clear, they are not legitimate Super Bowl contenders right now because they don't have enough answers on offense. Could that change? Sure. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have been there. They've done that. Maybe they can find someone. But as presently constructed with how these weapons are playing around Mahomes, the answer is no.
And I'm right with you. Some people are making jokes like, oh, it's Taylor Swift. It's the curse of Taylor Swift on Travis Kelce. No, it's not that at all. It's because teams realize, hey, we don't got to worry about the fastest man in the NFL on that roster. Heck, they don't even have Juju Smith-Schuster anymore. And Juju Smith-Schuster was Juju Smith-Schuster last year. But I think part of this is just the natural impact and the conversation that a lot of people are having about the NFL right now, about what happens when you pay your quarterback. It puts that much more pressure on you to hit on your draft picks. And just looking at some of the receivers they've picked in recent years, Mecole Hardman, a second-round pick in 2019, They didn't pick one until the 5th round in 2021 in Cornell Powell. They picked Sky Moore in the 2nd round of 2022. And they got Rashee Rice in the 2nd round of this year. And of those guys, Rashee Rice is the only one that's even kind of producing right now consistently. When you don't hit on your wide receivers and you're paying a super tight end and you're paying a super quarterback and you're trying to balance your team with good defense, and I do think that's the thing. The Chiefs defense can keep them in some games and can make some of these close contests. But your offense is going to feel it. And now defenses are going to say, we're going to take away your number one option. We're going to force you in with Justin Watson or something, or whoever else is on the Chiefs offense. That's where I think the Chiefs are right now. I think that they're in a place where they're experienced, that they haven't hit on some draft picks on the offensive side of the ball. And now Patrick Mahomes is having to feel it. And he's not exactly standing up too out of the pressure. And I think outside of, a lot of times I focus on the film, but sometimes I also focus on demeanor and body language and how some people respond to adversity. And Patrick, like you said, that loss to the Bills, he looked unhinged at midfield when he was greeting Josh Allen. Josh Allen says, good game, and Patrick Mahomes is complaining about the refs. Patrick Mahomes is slamming his helmet on the sideline. Patrick Mahomes is crying on the sideline against the Raiders. And again, emotions, I get it. And they happen in football. I'm not saying that this dooms him to never get back to the heights that he's been already as a quarterback. But there is a flaw in the armor right now that is the Kansas City Chiefs that everyone thought was about to just be the dynasty that ran the NFL for the next several years. And I certainly think all teams that they're going to smell blood in the water against this team, including the Cincinnati Bengals, who are facing the Chiefs coming up here. And I think it could be very interesting to see how does Andy Reid and that front office handle moving forward, because as they are constituted right now, I'm not 100% sure the Chiefs, will be, the top contender in the league in the next couple of years or so.
Isaiah Pacheco is in concussion protocol currently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I think about playoff picture and playoff matchups, and they'll make the playoffs.
Yes.
And they'll probably win that division.
They'll win the division.
I don't think they're going to lose out. Yeah. I would become a run-heavy, under-center, mauling type team because they do have a good interior offensive line.
Creed Humphrey's
that interior is legit. And Creed Humphrey's there. And, you got Trey Smith and Joe Tooney. Like, lean on those guys. Say, hey, you're our horses. We're going to give the ball to Pacheco. We're going to set up play action. And we're going to become one of these teams that usually do that to help the quarterback. But we're going to do that to take pressure off of our weapons and take pressure off of Travis Kelce, take pressure off of Kadarius Toney and who they need. I know he's a punchline. They need him, as weird as it sounds. Take pressure off of Valdez-Scantling. And so I almost think it's up to Andy Reid to find the right blend, right mix to get it to a point where you lean on the run game, the defense keeps you in it. And then when Mahomes needs to be Mahomes, he only needs to summon that from his weapons a few times a game versus all the time. And for so long, they've leaned on Mahomes all the time because they didn't have this defense, because they didn't necessarily have a high-end running game. But I think that needs to change if they're going to win, because they're clearly flawed now, and throwing it 40, 45 times a game, that's really tough for Mahomes. It's tough for this offensive line at the tackle spots right now. They're banged up a bit. So that's their path. If there is a path, I think it's that. Getting a little more blacker and bluer, being one of these tougher physical type teams in the trenches.
Yeah, I think it's a very good way to live their way. And listen, if you change it up, Andy Reid's a great offensive mind. He can draw up, maybe not new plays, but find different ways to use different concepts out of different looks from this team that might make it harder for opponents to key in on plays that they've gotten used to seeing from the Kansas City Chiefs and finding tendencies in Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is still a great quarterback. He's not a great quarterback anymore. He's just not dealing in the same situation that he's had for the past few years. And it takes time to adjust to that. And I think that move might be something that gives him a different way to kind of wow teams and catch teams off guard when they play them. But I have to say right now, if I am a team in the AFC and I'm fighting for a wild card spot, I'm loving the idea of being the 6th or the 5th seed right now, because that means you get to play the winner of the AFC South if you are the 5th seed, or as it looks like it's going to be, you're going to play the Kansas City Chiefs, and those that I'd rather draw that team than the Miami Dolphins at the 2 seed in the first round going to Miami. I'd rather draw that right now, and I don't think anybody has ever said in the past 5 years, "Ooh, I would love to play Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the first round of the playoffs at Arrowhead Stadium." That would be unfathomable if someone said that in the past 5 years.
Totally agree. I think that is something you certainly want to avoid. And what I also think is going to be interesting is if the Chiefs do win, we're going to see them on the road for the first time in the postseason, this iteration of them with Patrick Mahomes.
Didn't even think about that. That'd be wild. Yeah.
Would be wild. Let's go from the Chiefs to the team that beat up on the Chiefs and the future of the Las Vegas Raiders. We will do that coming up next.
But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players and pros and sharks and trying to just hit the lottery with the perfect lineup that beats thousands of other people, all you're doing is finding 2 to 6 players who you think you have a beat on that week and just guessing more or less than the projection that Prize Picks gives them on their stats. Prize Picks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. And with basketball season, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, if you think LeBron James and let's say Tyreek Hill will combine for a combo of more or less than 10.5 3-pointers and receptions combined between the 2 of them, that can be a pick that you play on Prize Picks in their Specials League. But Prize Picks also has what's called the reboot policy, which allows your entries to stay in play even if one of your players get injured. That means for NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, bowl season's right here, y'all, so you can enjoy that as well. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that you can always pick through, like Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks discounts certain player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And remember, Prize Picks does NFL, NBA, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks apps today or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. When you go to prizepicks.com, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
All right, Chris, let's dive into the Las Vegas Raiders and a team that not only beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but they're still in the thick, on the bubble, whatever you want to say, in the playoff race at 7-8. Their playoff probability, according to NFL.com, is 11%, but that is a heck of an accomplishment for interim head coach Antonio Pierce. He's 4-3 since taking over for Josh McDaniels, and I think a lot of people are buying into Antonio Pierce as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
I think so too.
Do you think they should hire him, shed that interim tag, and hire him to be the full-time head coach moving forward?
You know, a lot of times you want to be able to explore the field, and this could be a very interesting year to explore the field for head coaches. But sometimes you also have to look at your own squad and guess who is the leader. Because here's the one thing I think that people sometimes forget about head coaches. A lot of people want the offensive coordinating head coach who will just call all the plays, and you want the high-end offense and everything. But sometimes you don't need that to be your head coach. Sometimes you need your head coach to just be the CEO, the guy who runs the room, sets the tone, everyone believes in, everyone buys in on. And that's the question I think the Raiders face right now. Like you said, they fought back this year, and let's make it clear, like they're not dominating everything in front of them. They're 2-3 of their last five games, but they've won the last 2. They're really impressive with the way that they blew out the Chargers. They've been a team that has been looking for answers this year. Antonio Pierce deserves credit for rallying the troops right now, and they're certainly rallying, and they could even rally. But they're playing the Colts and the Broncos in their final games here. that's a team that could rally to kind of finish strong and have a different tone to what the season. They could get to 9-8. And if you told anyone that the Raiders would be 9-8 with the way that they were looking at the midpoint of the season, they'd call you crazy. And so Pierce deserves credit for that. So I say all that to say, I think that the Raiders, if they think that Pierce can be the leader and kind of the guy that galvanizes the team, stick with it. But make sure he gets a really good offensive coordinator. Make sure that he gets someone that can run things. And I think there's one guy in particular who could be very interesting in Eric Bieniemy. They're going to gut that staff with the Commanders. And if he's part of that, he might be looking for a job, and maybe he wants another shot to run an offense somewhere. And how crazy would that be? Eric Bieniemy coaching an offense against the Kansas City Chiefs. Guys like Kellen Moore, who might be out at the with the Los Angeles Chargers because they've already gutted their head coach, and he might be on the lookout there. Or go get Clint Kubiak or one of the guys people were talking about there. But I think if you get Pierce, you have to get one of those primo offensive minds to run your offense and try to rebuild that offense there. And I like that idea. But I also know that when you're an organization, you want to have a full-on coaching search and make sure that you get it right. Because if you miss with Pierce, you're setting yourself back another 3, 4, 5 years, however long that would be. And that would be a tough situation. Do you think that they should stick with him or they should try the field?
First off, I thought it was interesting. When you're talking about offensive coordinators, you didn't mention Matt Canada. So noted. Noted. In all seriousness, I think the next 2 weeks are huge. Because if he gets the next 2 games, and both are winnable, neither are easy. But if you get both games, you get to a winning record. He's 6-3 as your interim head coach, rallies after what was just an awful loss a few weeks back when they 4 days later just absolutely crushed the Chargers. I mean, how quickly things change in the NFL. That was just a reminder. But if he gets to 6-3 as the interim head coach, I think you probably have your head coach. I do.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't interview candidates. Of course you do. And who knows exactly how that search goes. Maybe you bring in some candidates for head coaching interviews and also interview them for the offensive coordinator role, or have that in mind as you're interviewing some of these candidates. Because to me, Antonio Pierce is getting something out of this team in a weird culture, right?
Yeah.
That organization, it's weird, it's unique. And I don't think you can just grab the next hotshot coordinator in general, plug him in, even if you do upgrade the talent around Aiden O'Connell, whoever's at quarterback, or upgrade at quarterback, and expect them to win. Pierce is doing that. So I think the next couple of weeks are a huge deciding and determining factor here, because they are in a tough division where the Chargers obviously have Justin Herbert, and we'll see what they do at head coach. We've already talked about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And then Sean Payton and the Broncos, they're on the outside looking in, but it's still Sean Payton. Yeah. And I think he's going to potentially address quarterback at some point too. So it's a tough division with teams that aspire to win and have won in the past. And so the Raiders, they do have to get this right, like you said. So pressure's on. I like what I've seen from Pierce. I'm not willing to shed that tag yet, but I do think he's on track to do that if they can continue to win games.
I think part of it's also stability. You know, this is an organization. You brought up the craziness of this organization. It was only a couple years ago that John Gruden was ousted for the emails and all the things that he was going through, and they had to gut that team that was 10-7 that year. Despite that, that was a team that started to believe in itself. Josh McDaniels comes in, they go 6-11, and then it looks like they're going to go 6-11 or worse with Josh McDaniels in the second year. Clearly, that hire didn't work. So you've been in head coach limbo for quite some time. Jack Del Rio looked like he had the answer when they were 12-4 for a year, but all in all, they have had 2 winning seasons since 20. Oh my gosh, I thought this would be much easier. 2003. They have had 2 winning seasons since 2003. If you have a head coach, even an interim head coach, who can get the locker room right, and you think you have that in Pierce, I think you stick with him. But I also think that we're both saying, get an offensive mind to work with him, but not be the person who leads the team. I think that right now, Pierce gives you that stability. And this is also a team that's also been ravaged. I mean, you look at their draft picks. A lot of their draft picks that they picked over the years are gone. Guys like Henry Ruggs, who isn't even in the league anymore for other reasons. You know, Alex Leatherwood hasn't worked out. You know, there's a lot of things that this organization is missing. if they have the head coach right in front of them, I find it hard to pass it up.
Yeah. I think that he can earn that. We will see if he earns that,
Sure.
and we will monitor that along with, all things NFL here on Locked On NFL. We certainly hope you had a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. We are back at it right here on Locked On NFL 5 days a week. So subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcast, and remember that this is your team and your league every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For Chris Carter, I'm James Rapine. Thank you so much for listening and watching another episode of Locked On NFL.